And good morning, everyone, and to our listeners all around the world. This is Brian Wesley Johnson, and I'm so glad you're here for another edition of This Morning with Soulivity. I am joined by two beautiful ladies who are beautiful souls as well, Sheila Applegate and Candace Harper. Good morning to the both of you.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Oh, man, I feel really good this morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not as tired and sleepy, you know.
I'm
Um,
tired and sleepy.
You were
well,
flying
sometimes it bees that way, right?
solo.
But no, I just had this certain energy this morning I was like, wow, this is really cool. And so I'm
Yeah.
just gonna roll with it. I want to remind all of our audience that listen during the show, we really want you to interact with us, engage with us on the topics that we'll have for you today. Just ask questions, post comments, give us your thoughts. You can post those directly to either our Facebook or YouTube channels. If you're on one of our other social media platforms and you're listening in, feel free to put something in the comments and we will definitely reply to you. Today is our hot, terrific topics, today. And so we're going to jump on into it. You guys ready?
We're ready.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, I was thinking about um everything that technology has kind of brought us over the years. um you know we're more effective, more efficient, we're more productive, but while that's also happening, research is telling us that people are finding themselves working just as hard even though they have tools that are supposed to make their work easier. And so I wanted to talk about the benefits of doing nothing today,
Nice.
Yeah.
right? Now
Yeah.
I'll start this by saying that there's a lot of research that has been done on this. And according to the New York Times, a new growing body of multidisciplinary research shows that strategic renewal, including daytime workouts, short afternoon naps, longer sleep hours, more time away from the office, and longer, more frequent vacations,
Mm.
boost productivity, job performance, and of course, health. Now, here's one more stat, and then I'll get you guys in on just your thoughts about this. A survey from Harvard Business School found that 94% of professionals work 50 hours per week or more, and
Mhm.
nearly half of all people surveyed work at least 65 hours per week.
Wow. That's insane.
Yeah, yeah. What do you think about this, ladies? I mean, I know I'll just open it up.
Yeah. I mean, what comes to mind for me is I think about when I used to work in television and I used to work those crazy kinds of hours.
Hmm.
And, I know that, we live in a culture that it's about working, 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 working so you can have. And for me, it's really important or it's been really important in my evolution from that lifestyle to understand that it makes no sense to be killing myself to have things that I don't have time to enjoy.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
You better
So,
preach.
right? But then also I find myself present too that I don't let myself just do nothing. I mean, sometimes I do, but if I do, I feel guilty about it. So I guilt myself a lot for doing nothing, and that's something I really want to transform. I'm glad you brought up this topic.
What do you think about this, Sheila?
Oh, I'm with both of you. I think, and well, I know how essential it is to do nothing and work less hard, right? I
Hmm.
think back when you read that, I thought back to the 50s when canned food started coming out and stuff, and everyone thought they were and
Right,
appliances, and
right.
everyone was gonna have more time, and instead we just did more, and now people had careers on top of, doing all the housework and all of that, which is great, except I think that we are just going faster and faster, and I do believe we're less productive when we don't take breaks. So for me, I've been working for myself for over 20 years now. So I've been working in the field where I'm telling people to relax. So ashamed to admit that, like, I'm still working on that, but I'm getting a lot better. And
Right.
I know that when I leave and go for a walk in the middle or work out or go rest, I'm not good at naps. But I know that when I follow and really get in tune and work on what I'm supposed to be working on in each moment by listening also to my body, I'm much more productive.
Right, right,
And also, I think, we have in common that we're all sort of working for ourselves and
right.
entrepreneurial. I think that it becomes even especially important to be conscious because it's really hard to just, say to yourself, okay, you can sit and breathe for a second when you have certain goals and things you're trying to meet. And if you're of service to others, it's like, you know what I mean? You want to sit down
Right.
and then, oh, I forgot to send that email. Oh, I forgot to do this. Which I'm not saying that doesn't happen when you work for somebody else, but at least there's delineated times that you're at work. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right, right, right,
That the
exactly.
expectation that you be working is much more delineated.
Right. Because I work any day at any time, depending
Right?
on how things flow.
And if somebody calls you and they really need, like, in-depth help, like, whether it's that you have to respond on some level, whether it's that you say, "Okay, let's schedule an appointment," or
Right.
yes, I hear what you're saying, and I know, whatever, there has to be response. Whereas, I think not all the time, but a lot of times when we work for someone else, we can set that boundary on
Mhm.
some level. I think a lot of us don't, but that is a boundary that needs to be set.
Exactly. Now
Yeah.
here's some more interesting facts about this. So, um, the quagmire of this is that the research is also saying that sometimes those long hours pay off, right?
Mm,
According to The Economist, since the late 1990s, this long hours premium has earned over workers about 6% more per hour than their full time counterparts.
mm,
People who work longer hours are also less likely to be laid off and more likely to be promoted. So they're rewarded, right, for
mhm.
those long hours. But the question always is at what cost, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
researchers have found that getting less than 6 hours of sleep each night is one of the best predictors of burnout. Working
Mm,
too much is also associated with low morale, depression, substance abuse, sleep deprivation, relationship breakdown, and
mhm,
disengagement at work. So
mm.
the bottom line is over time, your productivity suffers.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know, so I'll ask the audience while we're kind of chatting, um, do you feel that way? Do you feel as though that, even though maybe you're making, good money from working a whole lot, would it be your preference to work a little less, make a little less money, and have more freedom, right? Or is the money just like the end all, and which is cool too. I mean, sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
Mm.
Um, but what do you guys think about this? About these facts here?
I I think that we need to look at the other side of that, especially like we're all coming from the perspective of entrepreneurs working for
Right.
ourselves, but we're talking about a workforce that's just abusive. And the
Yeah.
trend that was going through over the
Snaps.
last few months or years is silent quitting. And all silent quitting is actually doing your job and having boundaries and only doing what you're getting paid for. And it was this huge I mean, it still
Right.
is, right? So now
I
if you
love it.
just do what we pay you for, and even when you were reading the article, like they're promoting people that go above and beyond, are they giving them more money? I just feel like
Right.
such an abusive capitalistic
Which is
workforce.
another thing, and Candy, I want you to get your take on this because I know you were in the workforce as well for a while. Is it me, or like evaluations back in the day, like you get the performance evaluations every year, right?
Mhm.
And if you were average, which meant you were doing your job, you were always supposed to get like at least a cost of living increase, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
then over time, I found that what was happening was, oh no, you weren't even getting that unless you were like exceeding expectations every year. And
Yeah,
which made no sense,
yeah,
right? It's basically you're paying me the same amount of money based upon inflation,
yeah.
right? And so I'm not even getting that. So every year I'm making less money because I'm doing my job.
Yeah. I mean, my experience of it, I worked in television, so that's even more because in entertainment, you're contracted, right? So
Oh
if
man.
you
Woo.
think you're just going to do just your job within a certain amount of hours, depending I was an art director, so it's like backstage work. If you think that you're gonna be able to do that, and I also was not union,
Hmm.
because if you're a union, you can, like you're, let's say, a stagehand, your hours are, whatever to whatever, and you get your lunch when you get your lunch, you're done when you're done. You don't even have to think when you go home. But for what I had to do, and I don't say this from a victim standpoint, but it's like if we don't like what you're doing anymore, we end your contract. So
Dang.
there's no like, "Oh, you're just doing exactly what we're expecting you to do." So, like there's no room for quiet quitting. It's very subjective. It's like we want you to go above and beyond, be overboard, help us to get higher ratings. And I think a lot of industries are like that, like because we as a company want to rate high, be the best at, like Sheila was saying, this capitalistic competitiveness with entertainment in particular, it's just over the top. So if you're not overdoing it, like living your life for it, overselling it,
Hmm.
wowing them every time, just like the performers on stage, if you're not getting applause every time, you're
Wow.
done. Like they just don't
Dang.
re-sign you. They'll just end your contract.
Woo, that's brutal.
Oh
Well,
yeah.
well,
Oh yeah.
why don't we turn the tables and we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about how to do nothing in a positive and progressive way, which is more beneficial. And so we're going
Mhm.
to share
Awesome.
some benefits of doing nothing and some tips on how to do it effectively. So we'll be right back in about 60 seconds, everybody.
Hi there, Sheila Applegate here with some exciting news. I've joined the incredible Soulivity team as the host of the new Consciously Awesome live show, where I will be sharing insights to help you discover your full brilliance and claim the vibrant life you deserve. So, tune in every Wednesday right here on Soulivity TV to join the fun, and remember to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss a single episode. Have an awesome week, and I will see you on Wednesday.
Soulivity Magazine and Beyond Words Publishing want to remind you about the importance of continuing to follow public health guidelines to protect yourself, your loved ones, and your community. Please continue to wear a mask, wash your hands, and watch your distance. Please visit these sites for further information about how to stay safe from COVID-19 into the new year. Remember, love protects us.
And we're back. Remind you that a great consciously awesome living is coming tomorrow at noon. That's Wednesdays at noon Eastern, where Sheila's going to be talking to us about our emotions. So Sheila, you gonna bring the noise and bring in the funk.
Love those emotions.
I second that emotion. So everybody, we are talking about the art or the benefits of doing nothing. And we had a great conversation about like you know this grind that is part of American society, and that can be really unfair sometimes. But we wanted to make sure that you got the understanding and the benefits that you can do nothing and it be effective for you. So, more facts here. Um, Ernst and Young, the accounting firm, studied the issue of vacations and found that yearly employee performance improves by 8% for each 10 hours of vacation time people take.
Nice.
These frequent vacationers were also less likely to quit the company. So the point that the study was saying was instead of working harder, work smarter, that you need to take some time off. And Dr. K. Anders Erickson, a professor at Florida State University and an expert in performance, said to maximize gains from long term practice, individuals must avoid exhaustion and limit practice to an amount from which they can completely recover on a daily or weekly basis. While most of us find it hard to tolerate, in many instances, like things like boredom, can be a prelude to something. It can trigger our imagination and creativity. In a sense, boredom can be seen as a liminal space, a critical resource that pushes us to seek the unfamiliar. How about that? Mm.
Yeah.
So one way that they say that you can do nothing is that it can involve remaining still, right? I mean, that's what most people kind of think about doing nothing. But there are plenty of other ways that you can let your mind rest. You just need an unrelated activity, like taking a walk, going for a drive, or reading a book. Each provides opportunities to shut your brain off. So let's talk about that. So, how do you guys shut your brain off?
Well, I love that you mentioned taking a walk because that's why people think I'm crazy because I have this habit of 5 miles with my dog every day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it's as much for me as it is for him, and not
Mm.
just for the exercise, but we usually find some place. I just relocated, but where I was, you find some place and just sit down and, sometimes I meditate, sometimes I don't, but I try my best to stay off my phone and just sit down with him and pet my dog and have that be the only thing, or, just look at the nature around me or breathe fresh air. Like, it's something that it's non-negotiable, unless it's, life gets in the way. Like I just moved, so I've been on pause, but I'm about to do that as soon as we get off this conversation.
All
Because,
right.
yeah.
I like that. You better go.
Yeah.
And that's GEAUX. Sheila, how do you do nothing?
Walking and hiking is probably way up there for me as well. Being with nature, like talking to the trees and the birds. I say that often, but that's one of my things. Meditating, for me, meditation is my work. So there's a different kind of meditation. I mean, it's just silent meditation is what kind of comes me outside of the working meditations. And fictional reading is definitely, I just love when I can escape into a book, because then that gives me a couple days of just being away, like a mini vacation.
Well, here's some other great ways. And audience, we want you to tell us how you do nothing too. So just post in the chat so we can get some other ideas. They say having regular breaks helps as well. When you oscillate between focused work and relaxation time, for example, 45 minutes of work, then 10 minutes of break, you can come back to your task renewed. They say you can set a timer if it helps, but sometimes the biggest challenge is simply to learn to say no to unimportant tasks and having the right priorities. Wow. Wow. I mean, I love lounging. I have learned to love it. Just get on our comfortable couch, maybe turn on the TV or read a book. I love the idea of taking walks too. I mean, we have a beautiful neighborhood, so you can do that easily. But I think it's just unplugging for a minute. I mean, do you guys eat while you work or no?
I
I
try
try.
not to. I really like that's one of those things that I try to be good about, but I'm not always. Like if I can, I like to actually just separate out eating from whatever I'm doing and
Right,
concentrate
right.
on eating. I don't do it all the time, but I'm conscious of it. Like, if I can sit and do that, I will sit and do that.
Wow. What about you, Sheila? Do you do that at all?
Very rarely would I eat while I'm working. No, I separate it out as well, and try to be mindful of that for the most part. Yeah.
I
Mhm.
think overall, like from what you're saying with the article, what it's basically saying is just be conscious of that. It's okay to be a person. Like, I
Right.
think we live in this capitalistic sort of work to live kind of mindset, and what's
Mhm.
hard to sort of break ourselves out of is that we're not just these employee drones. Like we're just human, so it's that balance of just
Right.
knowing that it's okay to take care of yourself, it's okay to slow down because we can't function if we don't take those rests, if we don't take the time to do things like eat. Like those like what humans did before there was constant inundation,
Right.
before the
Right.
internet, before television and all of that. Like they just sat down and talked to each other while they had a meal or took a nap when they were tired. We have to
E
remember to do those things because there's so much that will distract us from it.
exactly. I will end this topic with one last fact. And this is something that I learned from my time working overseas, working and living overseas, where, a lot of Americans talk about Europeans and say they're always on vacation, right? And that,
Mhm.
that they don't work as hard.
I love
Well,
that.
I did some research a long time ago, and it still sticks with me that they compared the number of man hours an average worker works between either Europe and the United States.
Mhm.
And that in the United States, you typically have the man years 1920, 1,920 hours. Sometimes in certain contracts, it can go up to be 2160.
Mhm.
Um, but the point is that that's the average number of hours the American worker does. The European worker works about 10% less when you factor in like vacation time and time off. But
Mhm.
here's the really cool thing. All that work that the extra American worker does in terms of productivity only adds up to be less than 5% more.
Wow.
Wow.
I believe it.
Yeah.
And the average number that most Europeans do in terms of how much time they take off, just vacation, not sick time, not doctor's visits or anything like that. Just vacation is something like 24 to 26 days per
Mm.
year. In America, all time off, including sick time, part time off, vacation is less than 10 to 12 days a year.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
And so just think about that. I mean, I wanted to bring this up to make sure that, I want everybody to live, la belle vie, the best life, that rose life where you really think about having that balance and that
Mm.
you take care of yourself as you're being successful in your career, your profession, your business, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So we're going to take another break. And when we come back, Sheila, you got a hot topic for us to talk about.
I do.
So, and it involves a recent movie,
Mhm.
something around like a panther that has a certain color, something like that.
Something like that.
Something
Yeah.
like that, something like that. All right, so we'll jump into that in about 60 seconds. We'll be right back, everyone.
Have you ever asked the question, if I was to be anything, what would I be? Regardless of money, regardless of status, beyond popularity and fame. Living your passion, feeling your life has purpose, Soulivity is a space to nurture that which lives in all of us. A place where work can become play, and doing what we love creates the dreams of a lifetime.
And we're back with more this morning with Soulivity. My name is Brian Wesley Johnson, and I am joined again by Sheila Applegate and Candy Harper. Girls, I'm loving this show today.
I know.
Me
On this,
too.
it's
Great
rainy
topic.
where I am. It's rainy where you guys are too. I know we're not
It's
far.
snowing here.
Is
It's
it?
snowing.
Oh.
It's snowing.
Isn't that a song, Candy? It seems like it's raining all over the world.
Is
Something
it?
like
I
that.
don't know that one. I feel like this is the perfect topic for like Georgia. Rainy night in Georgia. Rainy
Oh,
night.
rainy night in Georgia. Sheila, you've got a great topic for us. We were talking
Yes.
about it a little bit earlier, but I'll let you have the floor.
Well, I was on vacation the last few days, following your rules,
Oh.
right? And I had an amazing time visiting my kids in Los Angeles for a few days. And on the plane ride home, I finally watched Wakanda Forever, which was amazing. And it was definitely made the plane trip a lot easier.
Aw.
But one of the things that struck me, it was in the beginning of the movie, and I don't really think it's a spoiler for anyone because
Right.
we all know that the Black Panther died. And so in the beginning of this movie, his mom and his sister are by a fire having a conversation, and his mom says, I found your brother in the breeze. She and then his sister says to her, he wasn't there, mother. It was just a construct of your mind created to comfort you. And then this is the line that really struck me because her reply, his mother replied, and what constructs does your mind create when you think of your brother? Does it offer you comfort or torment?
Oh, wow. I love that part.
Yeah. So I remember making a decision in high school in a philosophy class that was discussing life after death. And after listening to everyone, I just raised my hand and I was like, we're never going to know until we die. And when we die, we're either going to be nothing and we won't realize it, or we won't. And so it doesn't matter what's real or true. It matters what is going to support me in life. I made a decision right there to continue to believe in afterlife. I mean, I was brought up to believe in it, but I made a decision to believe in afterlife. And that's what I've dedicated my life to, is now as a communicator. And I want to hear what you guys think.
Wow.
Love that. I mean, I have to say, like, one of my favorite sayings always, I don't even remember where I got it, but if you believe it, it's true for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I swear by that. I live by that. And it's interesting that you're referencing that particular scene because I even noticed because actually yesterday was the 1-year anniversary of my mom's passing. And I find that, I come from a very Christian family, and I tend to have a lot more sort of new agey kind of growth ideals than they do.
Right.
And I find that our language is even different in how we talk about it. Like not that it's better or worse, but I feel like, their beliefs around it are a heavy sense of loss, or that it's tragic, and that it's, that we have to only remember the positive things because that's the only way to remember someone who's passed. And for me, I feel like my mother's even more present than
Mm-hmm.
even before she passed. I mean, she passed with dementia. So
Right.
I have a sense of her all the time. Like, I feel like she lives through me, that her legacy still exists. And when I talk like that, my family looks at me sideways because it's just a difference in, it's not a difference in the level that we loved her or anything like that. It's just a difference in belief structure.
Right.
Right.
and how I choose to experience the grief and the loss, or how I choose to alchemize it, right?
Right.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
I, even in my coaching, I feel like it's so important to have that tool of alchemization, knowing that you're going to experience it exactly how you frame it, no matter what it is.
Mm.
Yeah.
So I love that topic, Sheila.
Yeah, I love it too. Whenever I have conversations with people about, the afterlife, communing with spirits, you know, having visitors from the other side of the veil, whatever it may be, and however you want to frame it, I always think about when I was 18. I was in Indianapolis living with my grandparents, and my grandfather had just battled back from near death. I mean,
Mm,
he for when he was born with a very, very weak heart, and they had always said that he wasn't going to live that long, and he lived to be 65, which in itself was a miracle.
Yeah.
But he went back into the hospital, and we visited him a couple of times that week, and I'll never forget this. I think it was a Friday or Saturday, and I literally woke up and I could feel like my grandfather above me.
mm,
And then he disappeared, and then the phone rang.
Mm.
It was the hospital calling my grandmother
Mhm.
to tell her that he had passed.
wow.
Now, I don't know about y'all, but is that really just a coincidence that I woke up and felt that? Or is there something more?
Yeah.
And I choose to believe that there's something more
Yeah.
and more meaningful, and that we are these bodies, that these bodies we have are just, water meat sacks that have a limited time expiration date, and that, our spirit lives on, and that um, we have a chance to have a different type of relationship with our loved ones, and
Mm,
that there's nothing wrong with that at all, and that is, I think it's actually a great way of moving through the grieving process. Not that, oh well, everything's going to be rosy once your loved one passes, but or transitions, because you're going to miss that person physically, their touch, how they smell, their laughter, all that. But that life is all about change, and there's this natural part of life, which is death,
Mhm.
and that we do need to learn to deal with that as spiritual beings living a human experience, right? And so
Right.
that's just my 2 cents on it. So I love that part of the movie. That part of the movie really stuck with me. Even, the action and the rest of the movie was great, as well. But that part, you know, that whole beginning where they're honoring
Mhm.
T'Challa, and honoring him in a way where it's, oh well, yeah, we're this body, yeah, he ain't here anymore. So
mhm.
we're going to
Right.
honor this body that embodied him, but he's really on the other side. He's on the astral plane with the other
The
Black
ancestors.
Panthers and the ancestors and stuff like that. And so, yeah, in fact, Angela Bassett acted her butt off in that movie. I'm glad that
Yeah.
she's up for an award for it. And she won
Yeah.
what? She won the Golden Globe, right? Did she win the Golden
Did
Globe
she?
or something? I think I'm trying to remember what movie what award she just won for that.
Yeah, I get all the once they start award season, I get confused with which is from where.
Yeah. Oh, she's the first actor or actress nominated for a Marvel film for an Oscar. So she's the
Right.
first. That's
Wow.
it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
That's how bad she is.
Yeah.
Bad meaning good.
Bad meaning good. Bad, not bad. Bad. I mean, so want to pull the string on this a little bit more, because I think, you know, this is always one of those subjects where I think people have a hard time with.
Mhm.
In fact, what's interesting is that tomorrow, or some on it's tomorrow or Thursday. Tomorrow we're actually going to have Karen V. Johnson
Right.
back. We had tried to have her last week, but there were some technical difficulties, and so we rescheduled for tomorrow. And she's going to be talking about grief and
Mm.
grieving and that kind of thing. So I thought that that was interesting that we'd be talking about that today.
Mm.
Yeah, that is. And I apologize if any of my people on the other side were a part of that technical difficulty, because I really wanted to be here with
Oh man.
I do think it's, having worked in the field and become a reader, most of my focus is on helping people to connect to their loved ones so they can continue the relationship. But the evidence builds up when you're connecting with people from around the world that you have no idea, and the details come. I think that there's something that is there. And one of the things that I like to focus on is with a quote, why it's important to move beyond the question of if it exists and start living whatever your
Yeah.
belief, because
Yeah.
it affects us in living better. I find that people who continue to communicate on some level with their loved ones after death are able to have deeper relationships on earth.
Mhm.
They're
Mhm.
able to embrace life more, um, because they're not afraid of that loss.
Right.
Mm.
Do you think too, and I'll ask you, Candy, this. Do
Mhm.
you think, Candy, that part of this too is coming to grips with our own mortality, and that by doing so, it changes our perspective on how to live day to day?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm definitely, I think our own mortality comes into play, especially when we lose someone that we really love. And I think
Mhm.
maybe even more so when you lose a parent or a child,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Because that bond is so symbiotic. But I also think it has to do with this sort of overarching idea that the process of life has wrongness to it. Right? So, that
Um.
it's wrong that someone sure, there are tragic deaths and there are unexpected deaths, but it's sort of this argument with reality that we get into,
Right.
Mhm.
where it's like, if it's happened, there's no we always wanna say, "Well, it shouldn't have happened. It wasn't meant to be," like, that was wrong, and I think that's where we often get stuck in
Mm.
Mhm.
Mhm.
our grief and our loss and our inability to process, is that we wanna argue with reality. And I think what soothes the pain of, being up against reality is that willingness to be in acceptance, and by acceptance, I don't mean it's that you wanted it to happen, or you wanted to lose someone, or you wanted something to end. It's that you're willing to flow with your response to it.
Right.
Right.
And often
Right.
that's where we get in trouble. We do not wanna flow with our response. We wanna be in denial. We wanna fight up against it. Right now, I'm listening to the Prince Harry book, Spare, and he talks
Okay.
right, and he talks very eloquently about how he dealt with the grief around his mother, and of course, he was very young, so his young mind, in order to survive that loss, made up that she wasn't really dead, she just had to go hide
Mhm.
somewhere because her life was too hard, with all the paparazzi and everything. And until he was, I think, almost in his early 20s, he convinced himself, he believed staunchly that she was alive somewhere and hiding.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Yeah,
I saw him in that interview with, Anderson Cooper, and he was talking about that. I thought that that was so fascinating.
right? But that also, when we're children, we develop those kinds of survival techniques, but that runs into your adulthood, and he talks more about how believing that all that time and having to come to grips really, challenged him as an adult, and how he showed up in his life because he's for so long wanted to believe that. And I think as adults, it's very important that we're willing to sort of love and nurture that little child that made things up, that
Mhm.
protected ego,
Mhm.
and just go
Mhm.
ahead and accept that the things that we don't want to happen, that we're so sure are wrong, are just part of our human existence. There, we're not promised tomorrow. Like, life is gonna be life no matter whether we wanna accept it or not. It's one of
Right.
those things that's about
Right.
Right.
yeah.
So what are some ways what is like one way that you think, and I'll go to you, Sheila, like what's one way that you think that would be supportive to people who may be struggling with um either believing um in an
Mhm.
afterlife, and I don't mean like, oh, you got to believe it, or you're kicked out the club. Um just, what are some of the things that you may tell people where, maybe they've lost a loved one and you can see that they're kind of struggling.
Yeah, I say just talk to them, continue the conversation, and if they're struggling of whether it's real or not, then I say just don't worry. Like pretend it, even if it's your imagination, it will help you.
Mhm.
And what happens is that at some point, when maybe writing a letter to them and then imagining them writing it back, or having a conversation with them like an imaginary friend going through your day, or picking a symbol that will represent them whenever you need. A lot of people use birds or coins, finding coins, but having those symbols to have that be like a little hello for them. These are simple things that most everyone, even people who say they don't believe in communication, usually have
Mm-hmm.
found some of those ideas in their head anyway. So um, I again just say, don't worry about whether it's your imagination, just experience it and then see what happens.
Mm.
Mm. What I know, Candace, I know you do a lot of things with love relationships, but my guess is as you're doing that work with people, sometimes death comes into the picture and you
Definitely.
have to give people some advice or some support. What's like one way that you support that process?
Well, it all goes back to acceptance of self, right? Loving the self and
Right.
how we love ourselves. So I was talking to a client yesterday, and she's in the rotation um, stage of her residency. She's becoming a dermatologist, and she's doing a rotation in ICU right now, and she's really distraught and upset because she's dealing with a lot of death, but then also making herself wrong for being so distraught and upset. So I think
Mm,
that
Mm.
the most important thing is not only be in acceptance that life is life, but also it's okay to feel sad when
yeah.
something you don't expect happens. It's okay to feel
Mm.
what you feel when, someone you love so much gets sick. Allow that. Like, don't tell yourself, "Oh, it's wrong. I shouldn't be crying. I shouldn't be." No, that's exactly what we're built for. The whole
Right.
full
Right.
gamut of emotions. We're meant to
Mm.
be hysterically happy. We're meant to be extremely sad and let ourselves have it.
Yeah.
There's a famous
Wow.
another famous quote I love is, "The tears we refuse to shed cause our organs to weep." And so it's
Oof.
okay to let it out, and that would be my sort of
Yes.
first step in dealing with grief and loss and things like that.
Wow. I think you guys said it all. I think all I'll add is a simple thing that Yana Van Zant says about tears, and she says that's nothing but holy water
I love that.
that
Nice.
cleanses the soul. So
Mm.
allow yourself to feel what you feel. Thank you, Sheila, for that. That's
Oh, thanks for
yeah, that was
playing with
beautiful. That's
That's
beautiful.
awesome.
So we're gonna take a short break, and when we come back, we'll end with something from Candy. I know Candy, you got a good topic too. You always have good topics.
Well, I try. I don't know.
We'll bring it home, our anchor leg.
Great.
So everybody, we'll be back in about 30 seconds.
6 years ago, when I started Soulivity, my vision was to support everyone in improving their life through the discovery of their passion and purpose, so they could become the best version of themselves, to battle fear and ignorance, and create a better world today. Get inspired to live your passion and purpose. Visit Soulivity.com now.
We want to remind you to please follow us on social media so you can stay up on everything that is Soulivity, including this show, This Morning with Soulivity. And you can join our mailing list by visiting our This Morning website at soulivity.com/this dash morning. And so we're into our last segment, ladies. I'm here with Sheila Applegate and Candace Harper. And Candace, you've got a great topic for us to discuss.
Yes. So, I was perusing as you do before the show.
Peruse you.
Perusing. I came across an article from CBSnews.com, and it's talking about how some of the major tech giants like Meta, which is Facebook and Instagram, YouTube and TikTok, are being sued by the Seattle school systems because they're allegedly contributing to the youth mental health crisis. Right? And so it's saying that the rapid growth the platforms have seen is because of the designs and operations that exploit the psychology and the neurophysiology of their users. So, in reading that, I was thinking to myself, yeah, I mean, I'm 51 years old and I feel like my psychology and neurophysiology is exploited when I'm using a lot of social media, and I do find it very addictive. And so I imagine, the brain is still developing and you're in your formative years, that it could really have a major impact. And it said one of the main things is that it's hooking like tens of millions into like the positive feedback loop and excessive use and abuse, which is basically the gambling sort of process, right? So it's like, I just need that hit, that like, I just need, one more follow, I just need one more comment, I just need to put up the right post to go viral, like just doing it to make something happen to get that dopamine hit in an addictive way. But the unfortunate thing is that they're saying that from 2009 to 2019, there's a 30% increase in students who say that they feel sad, hopeless almost every day for 2 weeks or more.
Oh,
And so
wow.
much so that they even stop their normal activities. So just, full depression mode. And it said that in 2020, with onset of coronavirus, the anxiety and depression almost doubled among youth. And so I just wanted to kind of talk about, like, I could see how that's a real thing, especially doubled up with the pandemic. But, is it so the school system is suing the major tech giants? And is that necessarily the avenue that's actually going to cause any kind of improvement? Because as a society, I mean, these kids' parents are probably just as addicted as they are.
Absolutely.
Right? So, is it that it's about suing these tech giants? And because I doubt it's going to have them change their behaviors. It's too successful of a thing as far as the amount of revenue that these companies bring in. What do you guys think about that? Like, is the litigiousness, and I'm not judging it because maybe there's something to it. Is it valuable? And, what would its value be?
Well, I look at this, if I'm going to make an analogy, I look at this as like a Star Wars kind of thing where you've got the Jedi and the Sith.
Mm, yeah.
Social media, I was a technology administrator in a public school system for some years. And back in the day, especially like in the early 90s, some of the social media platforms were built specifically to support educating, right? Support like young children. I mean, you have like YouTube Kids, for example. You had other places that had like, specific things that were resources for parents to help children get ready to read, right? For instance, like the web and social media. So that's one side of the equation, right? But the overwhelming, I would say more of a majority of like the platforms, they are designed to get people to act a certain way and to do certain things, like get hooked on getting likes, get hooked on getting views, get hooked on having followers, right? I mean, that's like the point. Like, how many followers do you have? Well, I only have 10. And they say, well, I have 100, so I'm better than you. And so I think that there is something to when you tie in children's development cycles, where I think it's between the age of 7 and 12 is the identity stage. And
Mm,
so you're having children go online and be part of that system where the more follows, the more likes, the more comments, the more engagement means that you are quote unquote more popular, you're better, you're more liked, you're more whatever. And that
Yeah.
I think children can that's another side that children may not be able to handle that,
Yeah.
which makes sense around depression and all that kind of stuff. So I think there's something to this.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think, Sheila?
I well, I have a couple thoughts. I think that article's really interesting. One of the things that popped out to me was the idea that you mentioned about it being addiction,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm.
it's the same trend, which would lead to drug addiction or gambling. When my youngest child was 8 years old, we went to the state fair, and I couldn't get them to leave, or no, probably smaller, leave the game section because they got, the fair games, and
Wow.
they got caught in it. And fortunately, I recognized that, and so I was like, "Okay, we're working on addiction now." And I think if people
Mm.
were, realizing the mindset that comes into it, that we could work with our kids younger, and see the social development that's going on and how to help younger, then it's gonna help smooth things out for adulthood. In this
Yeah.
case, it did. But the idea of whether a school should be suing, these big companies, which aren't gonna Meta's like it's, to quote the Bible or whatever, the David and Goliath idea,
Yeah.
just like you were saying with Star Wars. But the
Yeah.
benefit I see of it is it's bringing attention,
Yeah.
Mm.
and
Yeah.
it's a way that gets people's attention, versus just saying, "Oh, this is bad for us,"
Yeah.
It's an action that's gonna stir conversation and maybe even spark someone to say, "Oh, here's a spot where I can jump in and create something different." Because I think that the ability to socialize with people from around the world at a young age could be amazing. And
Yeah.
maybe, and it could go up through legislation enough that, our system is so odd in the fact that sometimes it's like something like this that will create enough momentum that something can be done
Yeah.
to adjust it as it moves up the system. But even in the capitalism of our country, there's this person that has the means seeing it and saying, "Oh, here's a spot that is now important, and something else could develop that would be more supportive without this massive control that's happening."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's almost like what I'm hearing and what you're saying too. If there were some way the onus could kind of be on these major tech companies to balance it out,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? If there's gonna be a suing, if there's like, how about sue for funding for something that balances out, like making sure that gym and physical activities are supported and that the arts are supported in a way that they used to be. For
Yeah.
all of
Yeah.
like things that actually don't require digital interaction are also supported so there's some balance to it.
Oh, that would
Yeah.
be awesome.
Because
Yeah.
the technology exists right now where if parents and are going to allow their children to use social media, that when they enter in and they set up these accounts like for their kids,
Mhm.
they put in the age, right? And then
Mhm.
that age triggers a filter on what they can and cannot see, or maybe it turns off like features like how many followers you have. I mean, there's
Mm.
all kinds of stuff that they can
That could
do
happen.
to
Yeah.
Yeah.
to to make it. And I think it's more about, maybe it's regulation. Maybe it's, hey, listen, we understand that this is real and
Yeah.
that, we need to be looking at um um how social media can create more of an addictive kind of uh, um, rise in our young children,
Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
parents need some help. They
Yeah.
need some help in this kind of stuff.
'Cause also too, it's like with any addiction, there's that lessening of self-value,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, parents need help, like, community wise. We all need help with that. So I think that understanding that I am important separate of how many people like me,
Right.
Mhm.
and valuable separate of how much attention I can get digitally.
Mm.
Like,
Right.
you have to make sure that that is instilled in this generation,
Mm.
so that they can be in that conversation.
Yeah. There was a limit when my kids were younger on when you could get on Facebook. I'm just
Mhm.
realizing that. Like you
Yeah,
had to be 16 or something, which is still
Like,
young.
yeah, I remember
and
that.
and I'm thinking too that when I was growing up, things like TV, we had a limit on how much TV we could watch when I
Mm,
was growing up, right? I mean, we could
Mhm.
always watch the Saturday morning cartoons, that kind of stuff. But when we came home from school, it was homework. You better get up there and do that
right?
homework.
No TV.
No
I mean, you're
TV until the homework is done,
At
right?
the
I
at the
mean,
risk of sounding like old people, like, remember when that, like, TV was a treat? Like, it
oh
was
yeah,
looking at a screen was, like, a very special treat.
yes,
And,
yes,
like, I can remember when we just weren't allowed to, unless it was the summertime, then we could watch soaps with my mom.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah,
otherwise,
yeah,
we
yeah.
had to be outside doing
But yeah,
things.
exactly. Go on outside and play, you
Exactly.
know? I mean, which is something that's a skill and something that children need to do, right? They need to
Yeah.
play. They need to commune with other kids and all that. And I think, you know, I love the technology. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I am a tech geek. Um and at the same time, you know, limiting just I'll put it this way. In the absence of guidance, what will be the outcome, right?
Mm,
I mean, just that's all I have to say. In the
yeah,
absence of guidance, what will be the norm,
yeah.
Mhm.
No, it's true. It's a good question.
you know? And I was thinking about another good topic as we were talking about this, which is um support for parents in the 21st century.
Mm.
Mhm.
Because this is part of it, right? I mean, the
Yeah,
advent of all this new technology and people can communicate to each other all around the world with a flick of a button.
yeah.
Right.
And how do parents navigate that with, you know,
With all the other stuff parents have to navigate.
exactly, which didn't go away, right? I mean, all
Yeah,
that was don't put your
yeah.
hand on the stove.
Get your
Watch where
education.
you're going.
Exactly. Don't hit your
No,
brother.
you know, learn to tie your shoes,
Yeah,
you know, all that kind of stuff.
yeah.
Oh man. Well, great topic. This is another great topic.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure.
You know, and the time just flies by. You know,
It does.
It does.
like, really? It's almost the top of the hour.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, listen. Thank you, ladies. I mean, again, great conversation with heart, with thoughtfulness. And I appreciate both of you, you
Oh,
know.
thank you.
I
Thank you for
appreciate
providing a
you.
platform. Yeah.
Yeah. And more to come. More to come.
Mhm.
Um, I want to remind everybody that tomorrow we're gonna have again author and former federal judge Dr. Karen V. Johnson is going to be talking about her new book, Living Grieving, right here on This Morning. Um, her own personal story is she lost her son uh, when he was only, I think, 27. And
Mm,
it completely changed her life where she quit her job, she sold her house, sold her belongings, and went on a 2-year around the world journey.
wow.
And it completely changed her life
Yeah.
in a more positive way, where she is now supporting other people in moving through the grieving process. So you do not want to miss that show. And that's tomorrow, right here on This Morning with Soulivity at 8 a.m. Eastern. So,
Nice.
Awesome.
yeah, it's going to be a good show. It's really going to be a
I'm
good show.
excited.
Yeah.
And again, just want to remind everybody that a new Consciously Awesome Living is going to be airing tomorrow, Wednesday at 12 noon, where Sheila's going to be talking about our emotions. And so you don't
Woohoo.
want to miss that as well. Um, Really quickly, Sheila, I know that you've got your soul connection sessions happening. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's a session that you can do with me individually via Zoom or phone, and we can help connect you to your loved ones in spirit and maybe help you establish that conversation or deepen it so that they can be a part of your life.
Fantastic. And Candace, I know you've got all kinds of goodies at your website for Soulivity listeners.
Yeah, so there's two main ones. My 12-week intensive one-on-one coaching program, Love Life Skills for Leaders, which is to help you heal the past, love yourself unconditionally, start your love life over from a clean slate. And then my group, the Love Life Leaders Club, which is that same curriculum, but spread out over a membership with a community for 12 months. And all Soulivity listeners get 50% off of both with the promo code Soulivity50.
Wow.
Yep. And I'm Candace at CandaceHarperLoveCoach.com if you want to email me.
Right. And we're going to put this all into the chat so people can go and find out more about both of you a little later. Listen, while we got a little bit of time, I'm just going to remind everybody to please follow us on social media, where you can find out a lot more information about our host and what we're doing and things that are coming. In fact, we got a great announcement that's going to be made in a few days, so look out for that. And listen, on behalf of all of us, I want to once again say thank you for joining us for another great episode of This Morning with Soulivity. This is what it's all about. It's about empowering you with real conversations so that you can go into your day, with some inspiration, some motivation, and that, you can make your day work for you. We hope that you come back and join us every weekday at 8 a.m. Eastern. You can watch the replay or listen to the replay at 11 a.m. We do that specifically for our friends out on the West Coast. And until next time, keep on having these kind of conversations with your friends, your family, with passion and purpose, and you'll be creating a life full of high quality living today. So we'll see you next time, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
This work is subject to copyright owned by Affinity Global LLC. Any reproduction or republication of all or part of this is expressly prohibited unless Affinity Global LLC has explicitly granted its prior written consent. All other rights reserved.